Good evening, everybody. I wanted to share something briefly that I'm doing with my classic car build that I think really should be done on a lot of cars to try and make them look just sharper and straighter and tighter than they ever were from the factory. One of the things that I don't like about the 67 Nova is that the front fenders the front bumpers, they fit the car just like absolute garbage. You see this giant gap. I shot this picture here where you can kind of see that the front bumper just sticks way off from the side of the car, and it's not a nice tight fit like you find over here. You can see that bumper there fits really, really well. Let me show you what I did to get it to do that. So the very first thing I want to caution you against if you're thinking of ever doing this to your car is the way that I did this, and I got that bumper narrowed, was I took some like 1 inch wide, masking tape here, and I basically deduced that removing about that much width of material was going to get a really nice fit. So selecting the proper size width of your tape to put down your bumper is really handy. And one of the first things that I realized was that if I had taken this tape and I had just put it right down the very middle of this bumper and then cut on each side, what would have ultimately have happened was that, this peak right here in the middle would no longer line up with my bezel right there. And so what I actually did in order to solve that problem was I took my little laser here and just basically set it up to where it drew a line running right down from there to there, all the way down the bumper, so I could basically, superimpose that line from the headlamp bezel onto the bumper. That let me know exactly where to put my tape so that when I cut it at the end of the day, I got it to line up really nice. So basically what I did was I put my tape right down the bumper, making sure that one side of it was right here, and then the rest of the tape was actually over to the side. So I wasn't taking out material in the middle, I was taking out material to the side. That way I could move everything in, and that peak would still line up with the bezel right there. A little trick I recommend when you're doing this and you're about to run your cutting tool, which I really just use like a an angle grinder with a cutoff disc there. I took a Sharpie and I ran it right down both sides of that tape on the bumper. That way, as I was cutting everything, if my my tape just fell right off or got pulled into the grinder or whatever, my line was still there that I had marked with my Sharpie as I went down my tape. So basically what I did is I cut along the outside first, and then I cut along the inside. And I did that so that this piece that I took out was holding itself in place. So cut the outside, then cut the inside, and that is ultimately the piece of bumper that I removed. At that point, I knew I needed something to hold this edge of this fender in place. You can see that it's really, really solid. So I just drew up this little bracket, cut it out in the CNC cutter, and installed it. Now it was time to weld the end of the bumper back in place. There are two things that I'll tell you that I did here. Number one, I took a little sanding wheel and took the chrome off right there. That way I was not trying to weld through chrome. And then number two, I took a flat disc and I ground down a bevel into this so that I was filling in, hopefully you can see that, so that I was filling in this valley with that weld. That way later, when I dress that weld down, there's weld, underneath the top surface level there that is holding everything together. From there was really nothing to it. I just used a few of these little welding magnets you can see in the shot to hold the end of the bumper in place while I tacked it on there. Later on, I'll come back and I'll fill in that weld. I'll grind it down. I'll use some Alvin Lab Metal, which is like powder coatable body filler, to smooth everything over. I'll powder coat it, and at the end of the day, this bumper will look substantially better than stock. Your eye will look at it and you'll just know that it looks better, but you don't quite know why. You just know something is more crisp about the car. This is a common thing that folks do to these old cars, and I think it is time well spent. So there you go. I'm just spending this evening narrowing up the bumpers on the car. Already, I look at the passenger side of the car, and it looks bulky to me compared to the other side of the car, the driver's side of the car. The bumper, it just fits the car so much better. This was a great modification, cost nothing to do. So Go give it a shot on your ride if you feel like it. Subscribe, hit the thumbs up, comment down below if y'all got questions, all that good stuff. Y'all have a great evening. Thanks for watching.